When the funds are low and the debts are high, and you want to smile but you have to sigh. When care is pressing you down a bit, rest if you must, but do not ever quit. Success is a failure turned inside out. Let's talk and clear the clouds of doubt.
Bismillah, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to a new episode of Let's Talk. I'm your host, Khalil Amunet. Today we're going to be talking about the concept of unity from an Islamic perspective. Unity is a concept that's been around for thousands of years. Unity in government, religion, society. But the world is made up of fragments, different people, races, genders. How can we have unity then? Islam stresses unity. We believe in one God. But does this mean we have to have one culture, one way of thinking? Today, the world seems to be increasingly disunited. We live within our own borders, different states, each looking out for the prosperity of themselves. Different cultures and people fear one another and deal with suspicion towards others. Here to talk about that is Usama Ashami. He's the host of Together to Paradise, which will air on Huda TV, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum, and thank you for joining us.
Alaikum salam. It's my pleasure.
And of course, we have our in-studio audience. Assalamu alaikum. How are you guys today? I'm not good. So my first question is, Islam is based on the belief in one God, one book, and the Sunnah. How can this be a unifying factor to humanity and Muslims?
First of all, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, wa salatu wa salamu ala Rasul al-Sadiq al-Amin, Muhammadun sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in, wa man tabi'ahum bi ihsanin ila yawm ad-din. The concept of unity is not only something that's important.
Yeah.
In my opinion, it is the most pressing issue that we deal with today as Muslims and as human beings. If you see the ocean, for example, this vast ocean that, extends through continents, what is it made of?
It's made of water, yes.
Droplets of water, okay? All of these droplets of water are coming together and they're uniting, and once that happens, they make this huge ocean, and that is the same concept if you apply to human beings, and especially if you apply to Muslims. The reason that we are in the situation that we are in today is mainly because we're not united. Even within different Islamic groups. If you, for example, look into the United States, you'll see that even the masajid in one city are disunited. All these different types of organizations.
Every group has their own ideas, their own agendas.
Exactly.
Even some even have their own masajid.
See, the idea of having your own goals is not a problem.
Yeah.
The problem comes when your goal becomes fighting the other group. Okay? When you stop working on your goals and the only thing that's in your mind is how I can beat the other group, how I can put them down, instead of how can we work together as Muslims so that we can affect change. Especially in the West, Muslims are minority, but they make themselves even a greater minority by dividing even more. As you said, Islam unites us. One book, one aqidah, one Prophet, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam.
But you think that that's enough to unite people. What gets in the way?
What gets in the way is that we're not following that one book, that one Prophet, and that one religion. That's, simply put, that's the issue. Once we start doing that, then we'll become great once again as Muslims. But if we don't do that, then we're just going to stay the way we are.
But how can we do that? Like, of course I said, I'll also talk about different races.
Yeah.
Like, it's not just, everyone's just not following Islam. Maybe people are following Islam, but they all have their different ideas that may not conflict with Islam, but conflict with each other on personal and organizational level, especially in the West, masajid, and different Muslims have different ideas, so like how can we just forget about that and become united, or do we forget about the problem?
See, we don't need to forget about our own beliefs. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us in different tribes and nations so that we can get to know each other. The ayah says لِتَعَارَفُوا, so that you can get to know each other. We've changed that ayah and we've made it into لِتَعَارَكُوا. Okay, we changed that one letter, which means to fight one another. That's the main issue. You go to your typical city in the United States and you find your Pakistani masjid, you find your Arab masjid, you find your African American masjid, you find your Bosnian masjid, you find your Somali masjid. But where is the true Muslim masjid? Only a few cities that I know of in the United States truly have a Muslim masjid. And the thing is, it's not like there's a Bosnian masjid because the khutbah is in Bosnian and it's helping people, or it's in Urdu and it's helping people. No, it's basically we want to separate ourselves from these other people, who are off the straight path, and we want to make our own masjid. We are bringing baggage from
our home countries,
countries into other countries, and it's only causing us problems. What we should understand as Muslims living in the West is that we have a great blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to really understand what the meaning of the word Muslim Ummah is. There are Muslims living in Muslim countries who they go their entire lives without seeing a Muslim from another country. For example, if you live in Egypt, you may never see a Muslim from Nigeria your whole life, or a Muslim from Pakistan, or from India, or from Bosnia, or from Australia. But if you live in the United States, or you live in Australia, or you live in the United Kingdom, then you probably, more than likely will meet
other races
exactly.
and other people.
So we should, as Muslims living in the West, we should be happy that we have this great blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And our society, in the United States, for example, in the United Kingdom, Australia, Western countries, is closer to that of the Prophet ﷺ's time.
Exactly. That's a very important point to remember. Also, comes a problem with that, though. The parents came from their own cultures. They're very proud of that.
Yeah.
They want their children to be brought up. A Pakistani wants his children to eat Pakistani food, to be familiar with his culture. Does that conflict at all with the idea of the one ummah?
Not at all. If you want your kids to eat Arab food, Pakistani food, be proud of their culture, there's nothing wrong with that. But when you start telling your kids that Arabs are the best people in the world, and all other people are inferior, or Pakistanis are the best people in the world, and all these other people are just junk, that's where the problem begins.
Or they're better doctors or something like that. Actually, we were just talking. I was talking with somebody earlier, and football matches here and in other countries also. It's one country against the other.
Mm-hmm.
It's not necessarily, it's not a friendly match. Or even the Olympics where, different countries are pitted against one another.
Mm-hmm.
They, instead of, it's supposed to be a concept of unity, the Olympics, all countries are coming together. But instead, it's almost like a war. They start counting the medals, oh, we're the best, they're not great at all.
Yeah.
So, as Muslim youth, how can we just remember to be united? While remembering that this world, there's so many things that take us away from unity.
First of all, I believe that we have it easy. The previous generation, obviously many of them are to be blamed, for what I honestly just call straight up racism against their fellow Muslims. But we have it better as youth because we don't have that baggage.
Yeah,
but at the same time, we don't naturally have it, but
it's taught to us.
Exactly. Are you going to import it? Are you going to take that baggage with you, or are you going to leave it behind? It's not really instilled in you, but you can you're still vulnerable, and you can get that baggage. But are you going to get it, or are you going to leave it behind?
Yeah,
and as Muslim youth, we have to leave it behind. There's no other way. I mean, if we as Muslim youth living in the West don't improve on this issue, we're going to be left behind for many generations to come.
Okay, that's all the time we have for this segment. We're going to come back to the next segment to touch more on this point. Please stay with us.
In Get to Know, we will discuss a wide variety of topics, including sports, friendship, toys, and much more. In this program, we have a segment called Make It Yourself, in which we will learn how to make simple items using very interesting things. If you are between the ages of 7 and 14 and want to learn how to make very useful things and have fun at the same time, well then this is the program for you. Join us here on Huda TV.
The entire staff at Huda would like to wish you a wonderful and blessed Ramadan.
Welcome back. We're just talking about unity, how there's so many dividing factors, especially in the West amongst Muslims, which race being one, everyone thinks they're the superior race. Then we have the problem of different groups within the religion. Some people like to say they're Salafi, some are called Ikhwani, then there are some people are called Sufi. So how do we deal with this when talking about unity?
We need to understand that we're all Muslims. We should be all Muslims and follow the Quran, the Sunnah, and with the understanding of the first 3 generations of the Muslim Ummah. If we do that, then we'll all be, in good shape.
Good, yeah.
But obviously, that's not the reality. The reality is you have all these different groups. Okay. My advice is to try to work together, since we already are a minority. Try to work together on the common issues, and there are obviously a lot of common issues. And try to help each other to learn from each other, and teach each other instead of criticizing.
Yes.
I think that's the biggest issue. And you need to understand at the end of the day that even though you might differ on some opinions with this person, he's still your brother in Islam.
And everyone's Muslim too. That's what we have to understand.
Exactly.
Just because you're Ikhwani doesn't mean you're, and just because you're Salafi, there's not, you're all Muslim.
Exactly, we're Muslims. And again, I say it again and again, if we do not unite as Muslims, there's no hope for us.
But I mean, there's a reason for these. They have different ideas, right? So what are the important facts, what are the important things to remember when dealing with others who have different opinions, having discussions? Like, what can we remember to do?
Most important thing is not to consider them as the others.
Yeah.
To consider them as your Muslim brothers and sisters. Once you do that, then you'll find that you're trying to work on the commonalities a lot more than you are on the differences. And I'm sure there are many, many issues that we can work on together. Basic da'wah. If you want to give da'wah to non-Muslims, it's all the same. If you're doing Islam 101 class, you're not going to have any issues that are going to have different fiqh opinions or different strategies of da'wah or things like that. You're basically teaching people tawheed. You're teaching people the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So work together. That's the main idea.
Okay, inshallah. We're going to go to the question for some audience, for some comments or questions. Okay, go ahead.
Alaikum salam.
I would like to know if unity means to be separated as a Muslim nation from the other, or is there a chance to change ideas and kind of things with other nations, and to make change civilization? Just this.
I mean, the concept of unity goes beyond just the Muslim Ummah.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that encompasses all of humanity. Obviously, we can't be united with the rest of humanity when it comes to aqeedah, because as Muslims, we believe that we have the correct aqeedah, which is, very simply put, the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The belief that no other religious group in the world has. The tawheed, oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is what we believe in. We cannot really unite with other people, on that aspect. But we can unite with other people on common issues. For example, if we have different humanitarian causes that we need to work together on, we can do that. We can work together with the rest of the world in trying to reduce or eliminate poverty. We can work together on literacy, education issues, health, sanitary issues. All these things we can work together on instead of fighting. I mean, but it is honestly a fallacy to believe that the whole world will one day become united, because at the end of the day there is good and there's evil. And there's good and evil in every people, in every nation. And we need to find, those who are good in different nations and work with them together so we can have, common goals and be able to serve humanity in the best way possible, inshallah.
Yeah, inshallah. Do we have any other questions? Yeah. Okay, go ahead, inshallah.
It's not a question, actually.
Comment,
It's something I would like to say. That Allah said in the Quran, إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِخْوَةً. And when the Prophet ﷺ came, he was really keen to make all the Muslims have one brotherhood. I mean, when he went to Mecca and to Medina, he were supporting the idea of having one united community. In this community, we had Bilal al-Habashi, where from somewhere now in
Abyssinia.
Africa is like Ethiopia or something.
Abyssinia.
And we have
We have Salman al-Farisi.
exactly,
from
we have
Persia.
Salman al-Farisi, which is Persian, and we have Suhaib al-Rumi, which is from Roman. I mean, all of them were Muslims together from different cultures, yes, but one Islam.
Exactly.
I think that's where the strength of Islam came up from the first place, because
Unity through diversity.
yes, exactly. When the Muslims were living, well, they're very early Muslims in Arabia. Everyone was divided. There weren't different countries. They were divided in Mecca, different tribes fighting against one another. I mean, they'd have one person kills one person, the other tribe goes and kills two more people, and it was just endless cycle.
Exactly.
And that's just in one small city. So can you touch some more light on how Islam unified?
Islam came to make people civilized. At a time where people were absolutely uncivilized, and all these activities that you're talking about were just common. But Islam came to tell people that there is the person who is white is not better than the person who's black, and a person who's black is not better than a person who's white, and a person who's Arab is not superior to a person who's not an Arab, and a person who's non-Arab is not superior to an Arab except by one thing,
in religion,
which is what?
Deen.
Taqwa, piety, okay, consciousness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And guess what? The only one that knows your level of taqwa is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So in reality, what Islam is teaching us is that you should never differentiate between people, because the only thing you can use to differentiate between people is taqwa, and you don't know the level of taqwa of anybody. So work on yourself. Don't think for any reason that you're superior to anyone else, just because of your skin color or your country of origin or your nationality. See, when the imperial powers came into the Muslim world, they made these, simply put, fake lines, between the Muslim countries.
And it worked. There were no borders before. The Islamic
Exactly.
Empire, they had been living for thousands of years
Exactly.
with no borders. And
See,
then
what some people say, oh, well, there was this area and there was this area before. Yeah, there were these areas, but they were really states. Kind of like you have the United States of America right now. Okay,
Yeah.
You don't say, oh, you don't have a fight between Virginia and Maryland and Florida. This is how the Muslim Ummah was. We're not saying that it was just all one thing and there's no difference between anybody. No, we had different areas, but they were states. They weren't countries that were competing, and fighting against each other.
they were working with each
They
other.
were working with each other. And if you notice, subhanAllah, you'll see that within the Muslim Ummah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has divided up the resources.
Yes.
Natural resources, human resources, everything. If all of these countries and all of these Muslim nations and states come together, they will become a superpower. But if they don't, then they're not going to become a superpower. That's why, if you look at the superpowers, what are they called? The United States of America. The
Yeah.
European Union.
Yes.
Okay? The Soviet?
Union, yes.
Exactly.
But I mean, what we have to think about also is diversity. We're all very diverse, different races, of course, but on different levels of effort. The things different countries can do are different. Like some countries have a lot of human resources. Like I think Egypt has a lot of human resources. While another country like Saudi Arabia has a lot of wealth, a lot of money,
Yeah.
and other countries have a lot of natural resources.
Yeah.
You know, so if they all united and work together, you know,
Yeah.
and it doesn't even necessarily have to be one country. If they
Yeah.
just open their borders towards each other, that's
Exactly.
something that, you know, everyone has to apply for a visa or something like that, you
Mhm.
know, it's very hard.
Yeah.
Do we have any more questions from the audience? No? Okay, do you have anything to add to that?
I just like to, add to your point about Muslim nations uniting. Obviously, as we're here in this program, this is something, it's kind of a huge goal, and it takes, great resources in order to make it happen. It takes people in power in order to make it happen. But what I want to emphasize
on personal levels and
exactly
levels,
on a
youth working together.
Exactly. That's what we have to do. Okay. Two main things that I think as Muslim youth living in the West that we should do. First of all, we absolutely cannot hold on to the baggage of racism, straight up racism between different segments of the Muslim community. Okay, we have to absolutely kick this idea out of our brains and out of our hearts. Even more important than our brains, our hearts. Okay, that's the first thing. And the second thing, a piece of advice is, as a Muslim youth, try to learn about the Muslim world. Try to learn about your fellow Muslims in different areas. If you're in the United States, try to learn about Muslims in the United Kingdom, in Australia, in Nigeria, in Egypt, in Niger, in Somalia, okay, which is going through a very hard time right now. In Sudan, and many other places in the world, in Pakistan, in India. Try to learn about the Muslims and make a lot of dua for them. And once you do that, you should be in good shape, inshallah. Even if you have residue of this racism, it will go away. And another great advice is try to travel, if you're a Muslim brother, try to travel to different Muslim countries, so you can learn about the cultures. If you're a sister, try to see if you can find a mahram, inshallah, and travel with them, inshallah, and take it as a tour, and also take it as a learning experience. Take an intention that you're going so that you can learn about the Muslim ummah and different people in our community.
Also,
and last thing that you should do, and most important thing, is try to go to Hajj or Umrah. Because if you have never met a Muslim from a different country, I can guarantee you that you'll meet a lot of Muslims from a lot of different places once you go to Hajj, and it'll be a great experience for you, inshallah.
Yeah, there have been a lot of stories where some people who had deep, hatred or racism towards other races went to Hajj, and they came back new people. They decided
Exactly.
To forget about that. So yeah, that is
Like our dear brother Malcolm X, may
Yes,
Allah have
yes,
mercy
yes.
on his soul.
yes.
Yep.
Also talking about different cultures, it is important to learn about different cultures because we don't want to lose culture.
Yeah.
That's a very important thing to remember. You want to. Nobody wants to live in a world where there's everyone's just following Western culture.
Yeah.
We're all eating at McDonald's. We're all wearing the same clothes. That's going to be a very boring world.
Yeah.
So it's important to learn about your culture and to keep the good aspects and leave the bad aspects.
Exactly. Exactly.
So
Anything that that's in your culture or in your background that goes along with the teachings of Islam, follow it. But anything that goes against Islam, you should make Islam first and absolutely throw away anything that goes against Islam. No matter how culturally important it is for you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is greater than anything.
do we have any, let's go to the audience to see if they have any comments or questions.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam.
I would like to ask a question concerning how can we can be unified while we have different sects and we have different beliefs. So I think that the most important thing is to have an authentic belief. This is the fundamental aspect that we have to be unified on it. So how can we be unified on while we have different beliefs and different sects? So this is the most important thing. And can we do it while we have different beliefs?
I think it's possible, inshallah. As you mentioned and as we mentioned earlier in the episode, we should unite based on three things: on the Quran, the Sunnah, with the understanding of the first three generations of the Muslim Ummah. And I think if we focus on that, then we'll find a lot of commonalities. I believe that Within many of the Muslim organizations or Muslim groups, their goal might be the same, but their means are a little bit different. So, we need to understand there will always be differences. It's something, that will be there till the end of times. But what we can do to, make things better is try to work together on the commonalities. There are obviously common things and common issues that, unite us all. And if we, put our hands together in these issues, I think we'll find plenty of work to do other than just, criticizing each other.
So, okay, when talking about sex, sometimes this is like one of the touchy subjects. There's Shi'is or Sunnis, that type of thing. How do you recommend dealing, because this happens a lot in the West, there can be a Shi'i going to a Sunni masjid, but he's just going there because there's no other masjid, or, how do you have any tips for dealing with this for Muslim youth?
Yeah, I mean, Shias are two different types of people, okay? You have their so-called scholars, and you have just the average Joe, okay, the average person. Now, it's hard for me, and it's actually impossible to, have good relations with a person who's cursing, the mothers of the believers, or who's cursing the Sahaba, But if that person is just an average Joe who doesn't know too much about, his own beliefs, he's just, been raised in this society, then I believe we should treat him a little bit differently. We should, try to, inshallah, befriend him, and inshallah help him come to Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, and inshallah he'll be on the straight path. And invite him. You're really making da'wah to him. We need to understand that. Should we unite
with them?
With Shias? I don't think so. And there have been many, efforts in the past that tried to do that, but it was not successful. Again, like I said, it's simply put, how can I deal and build relations and shake hands with a person who's cursing Abu Bakr radiallahu anh, or Umar radiallahu anh?
Okay, but we have to have a certain respect. Well, that may not be called necessarily uniting as in uniting, I'm not sure what we're talking about when we're talking about unity, but I mean, we're just saying unity as in your humanity, we're not going to necessarily curse you or treat you badly.
We're not going to curse, because this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala teaches us, and that's what the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam teaches us. But am I going to, build great friendly relationships?
No. Of course not. Yeah. Okay, that's all the time we have for this segment. Inshallah, we'll be coming back after the break.
Allah is beautiful and He loves beauty. So is it logical to say all plastic surgeries are lawful in Islam to bring or to regain beauty? It is very misleading questions. Need a very accurate and firm answers. Let us set up the rules and principles to cover all plastic surgeries in Islamic law. How Islam does legalize niqab or veil factor in our modern life? Is it fair to suggest that it is more cultural than it is Islamic? I would rather to answer these questions by just suggesting very shocking fact about niqab. Are you ready for that? How Islam does legalize polygamy, when Islam always says that respect natural instinct and natural feelings, and knowing that not a single woman does accept anyone to share her in her kingdom. All what you have said is true. But is there any difference between your natural instinct and your natural desires? Or maybe between your interest or what you wish to have? Or maybe your interest and other interest? Is it true that anything came after the Prophet ﷺ regarding this deen to be considered as a bid'ah, innovation? Is neither this nor that? It seems very well complicated and confusing to many Muslims, especially when it comes to the saying of the Prophet ﷺ, وَكُلَّ مُحْدَثَةٍ بِدْعَةٍ, and Sayyidina Umar saying, نِعْمَةُ الْبِدْعَةُ هَذِهِ. Let us set up a very comprehensive definition of bid'ah according to Islam.
The entire staff at Huda would like to wish you a wonderful and blessed Ramadan.
Assalamu alaikum, welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. We were talking to Usama Shami, and now we have a new guest. Mustafa Marwan is joining us. He has volunteered in some NGOs, the Arabic Medical Union, and he's here today to speak to us about unity. So, what's your opinion on the concept of unity?
Well, first of all, I want to speak about the opinion, my opinion. It's not my opinion. I want to speak about the concept of unity from Islamic point of view. I want to speak about the original sin. In Christianity, the original sin, of course, we all know it's eating from the apple, Adam and Eve eating from the apple, and then that's the first original sin of humanity. But in Islam, it's really different. Like many Muslim scholars are saying, the original sin is the first sin that ever took place. And the first sin that ever took place is when the Satan refused to obey the order of God and told him that I'm better than him, you created me from fire and created him from mud. It's the same thing as I'm white and he's black, I'm Paki and he's Arab, he's tall and he's short, so it's the racism. So really the original sin from Islamic perspective is racism. And from here comes the point of unity, because unity is anti-racism. So a fundamental core of Islamic perspective is that people are united, and in principle they are united, and no one can judge anyone based on his color or background or anything like that.
Basically, at the outward things, but people put so much importance for some reason on the outward appearance. When it doesn't mean much. They see somebody and they automatically judge him. Why is this? What is your opinion on that?
Well, I think it's something we got used to, but if you look at it, you will find out that everyone is different from another point of view, and there is always room for everyone to learn from one another. If we only just learn the right concepts of dealing and interacting with others, you will find that we are not only actually learning about others, we're learning about ourselves also. And also, coming back to Islamic perspectives, God say, and I'm translating, for each among you have we created a low and open way. If Allah so willed, had made you a single people. But His plan is to test you in what He has given you. So strive as in a race in all virtues. It's God who will let you know the matters in which you dispute. So that's the whole thing. You shouldn't judge anyone. It's something that's left for God to judge people. You just interact with people and show the best you've got and learn from them about their differences and about yourself also, because you also get to know yourself.
Do you have any tips for people who want to get to know other cultures, intercultural dialogue? What is your experience in that?
Well, from my experience, I think that the golden rule in dealing with others and in intercultural dialogue thing is that you always need to seek understanding rather than agreement. Because in lots of issues you will not reach agreement, and you have tried to reach agreement, you will be really frustrated. So reaching understanding will really help you on this. Besides, if you looked at it, you will find that yes, we all have differences, but these differences, if you looked at it, you will find similarities are way much than the differences. I mean, let me just give you a single example now. I'm pharmacist from the first place, so I'll let you know about a medical example. Do you know that your genome and my genome are more than 99% identical?
Yes.
We don't even look alike. I mean, if you look in the mirror now, we don't look alike. But more than 99%, we are identical in our genes. It's the same thing. So if you only focused about this 1%, you will not find room to communicate or to do anything. You will just judge and curse and do all these things. So we really need to reach this understanding point.
Also, a lot of wars and conflicts come out based on race and differences between that are, so small when you really think about it. I hear you recently went to Libya to to volunteer to offer medical help and personal help to the Muslims who are fighting against a very violent regime of Gaddafi. What was your experience there? They saw you were an Egyptian, and you went all the way. You made all this effort to go to Libya. Why is that? Why didn't you just? Why it's not your fight?
Well, the word "it's not your fight." I've been asked this question a lot, and from I have many American friends who asked me this question about "it's not your fight," but I really disagree with this. It is my fight, from both Islamic perspective and also from a humanitarian perspective, because Islamically we don't really believe in borders between us. We are both Muslims, and this is my land in Libya, as Egypt was my land in the revolution. So both revolutions are the same thing. And we are both Muslims, we are both neighbors. So even if we are not Muslims, we are neighbors, and those are human beings like me and you, and we need to help them. And Prophet Muhammad says, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and I'm interpreting that the best of you in the eyes of God are those who serve people. So that's the basic concept. It's not about them being Muslims. Of course, that's a very important thing, to help Muslims first. But even if they are not Muslims, we also are obliged to help them. And when you look at it, you will find that you're also learning from them, and you're also finding the real joy of life. Because I believe in the famous quote, which is, "A life lived for others is the only life really worth living." Because living for yourself will not give you any pleasure, except for learning to be a really selfish person.
And we're not talking about uniting on belief. We're not saying, to help a Christian is to become a Christian. It's to help somebody get out of a situation, perhaps, what is your opinion on that?
As we said earlier also, that even if we have different aqidas, even if we have different core beliefs, we can unite on certain causes. And poverty is a great cause that we can unite on. Literacy, helping people in need, women's issues, malnutrition. All of these issues are issues that are common to all of humanity. People from all parts of the world are suffering from all different types of diseases, and all people can unite in order to help them.
And this is a great form of da'wah. When somebody sees, a Muslim came to help me, he went through all of this to come and help, they'll get attracted to the religion through that way.
Yes, exactly, that's completely true. And there is also another point I want to highlight, which is, now we are living for somehow, because of the conflicts and because of the political games that each country plays, and the need to control and the power and all these things, people are now living in what's called scarcity mentality. And we really need to live in what's called abundance mentality, because in scarcity mentality, there's no room for everyone to get what they need, so people fight together. But in abundance mentality, there's room for everyone. And actually, in Islam also, your rizq is from Allah, so you don't need to worry about it. And that's the core of abundance mentality, which we really need to live.
Yes, and if your neighbor doesn't have enough, and you have enough, give to your neighbor. That's an important, because we have Islamic countries now which have a huge problem with waste. And we have other countries, not just Islamic, other countries in the world have a huge problem with starvation.
Okay.
Why is that?
It goes back to unity and disunity. Because if we were united, then we would share our resources. Because our goal is common. But now, the goal of the different Muslim countries is for
get more for myself.
Exactly. Get more for myself, and at the same time, try to be better than this other country. So in order for me to be better than this other country, then this country has to go down.
Exactly, yes.
Okay.
It's kind of like a win-lose mentality.
Yeah.
People, especially youth, they're used to watching sports matches.
Mm-hmm.
There's a losing team and a winning team. They're cheering when their team wins. They're cheering and insulting the other team.
Mm-hmm.
So what are some of the other things nowadays that perhaps in our culture that lead to disunity?
Well, it's always the belief that when you start a conversation or anything like that, you start conversation with a firm belief that you are right and the other is wrong.
Yes, yes.
So, I mean, there's no need for the conversation from the first place if you start with this firm belief. I mean, it's always like when you walk with your car and there is a car coming from the other side and its headlight is blinding you. So you're not aware that also your car's headlight is blinding him. So the only way to overcome this is to go with open mind, listen from the others, and take what is right for you and leave what is bad. And that's the core thing in intercultural dialogue in general and in understanding others.
To exchange ideas and to sort of put yourself on someone else's shoes is very important. So I think you were talking about travel. If you want to learn more about culture, travel.
Yeah.
And perhaps this is where NGOs are a good way to do that, volunteering your time to go to war-torn countries or countries that are just impoverished and need need medical help. I hear there's you know about some NGOs. Can you tell us more about their role in today's world?
Yeah, actually, there are many NGOs working in the humanitarian relief sector, and I'm really proud of some Muslim and Arab NGOs like the Arab Medical Union, which I'm proud to be volunteering in, either while in the Egyptian Revolution or in the Libyan Revolution. The Arab Medical Union works in many countries, and some of these countries are not even from Muslim, majority of it is Muslim population, because it's also about the concept, and that's something Islam is telling us about. It's helping humans. So Arab Medical Union is working in many countries, and I really encourage youth to, as you said, to get use of their free time in something that is helpful. I mean, I don't want youth to think that humanitarian relief work is just a waste of time or something, because you learn a lot from this. You learn the travel experience, you learn the satisfaction of helping others and feeling that what you do is really important. And you learn from others. I mean, when you go to a different place and find those people, for example, because of the extraordinary circumstances they are having, are becoming themselves extraordinary people. And that's what I saw myself. I mean, I've went to Libya, I've went to lots of places in Libya, and the problem is the more extraordinary the people are. I mean, in Misrata in Libya, for example, they are bombed every day since 5 months now, and the people are really have uplifted souls, and they believe in what they do. They believe in. It's different when you hear the concept of freedom from someone sitting on a chair, and when you hear it from someone who is putting his life to risk for it. You really believe more in freedom. You really believe more in your principles, and so you really learn a lot from such experiences.
So there are people actually sacrificing their lives to have what some Muslim youth in the West may just take for granted, especially, we're very spoiled in the West. We just sit back, we watch on CNN or Al Jazeera, what's going on, and we don't really put ourselves in their shoes. So, of course, travel is important. What else do you have to say about, especially youth in the West? How can they learn this concept of unity by doing outward actions?
Try not to be ethnocentric. Which means that you're judging all other societies by your own standards. Try to put yourself in their shoes, and again, just go and explore the world. Obviously, within your Islamic boundaries, as we said earlier.
Exactly, like when you travel, you find there's happiness everywhere. Even in a war-torn country, there's still happiness. There's still joy. And maybe it's a different kind, but it still exists. So we don't always live the best lives, Just because you have more material resources doesn't mean you're more happier.
That's definitely true.
So that's a very important thing that can be a uniting factor. So instead of looking down upon people for material wealth, because the Western culture, really, is being exported everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Any country you go to, unfortunately, we'll find this out if you go travel, has a McDonald's, has people wearing Western clothes. They sell Western clothes. That's the highest standard. This is kind of a unity, but it seems like a negative unity, doesn't it? Do you have any comments on that?
Well, yeah, I think it's a negative thing, because the normal thing is that we have differences. As you said earlier, we can have we are not meant to be the one race and one and one kind of culture.
Yeah,
we have
definitely.
to have different cultures, and people come actually to our country to explore our cultures. So we are not going to show them McDonald's, because they
Yeah.
already have McDonald's in their countries. They came here to see our own cultures. So we can't just get rid of our own cultures for the sake of any other culture.
Okay, that's all the time we have. We'll be back for more. Please don't go away.
The main concepts of Islamic economics, how is it different from the Western theories?
And the beauty about Islam is not that it just came as a religion to perfect the relationship of the servant of Allah with Allah, but also it came to perfect the relationship of the servant of Allah with others. The beauty about Islam, Islam comes and brings the interest of the public and the interest of the individual together.
How is Islamic banking different from the traditional banking system?
The concept of riba is that I lend you money, I give you a loan, in return that you give me back that loan with an extra at the top.
The idea of the stock market itself is halal or haram.
So these are the main conditions that the scholars put with regards of the share market.
The entire staff at Huda would like to wish you a wonderful and blessed Ramadan.
Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. One of the things about unity, which seemed to be a unifying factor, is marriage. It unites one man and one woman. But culture comes in the way. A lot of parents, a lot of different people are afraid of intercultural marriage. What is your opinion on that? Is it a valid fear? People fear if they have their daughter or their son or from one country and they marry another culture, they'll lose their culture. Is this a valid fear in your guys' opinion? Who wants to take this question?
Well,
Go ahead.
I think in principle, of course, when you get to marry, as Islam also teaches, we have to look for religion. So that's the basic thing you have to look for. For me personally, of course, I don't have a problem in marrying a woman from a different culture. Now that the Islamic part is okay, and of course there are some other factors. But what I really care about is reaching understanding. If I really reach an understanding in the most basic things, and of course hopefully agreement in these things, I wouldn't really have a problem in marrying a woman from a different culture.
What about you, Sama? What is your opinion on this topic?
What's the Islamic opinion? That's
the Islamic opinion, of course, is halal. I'm talking about
it's halal. We have to look. This question is one of the most pressing questions. It's a loaded question, and it's an issue. As I'm talking to you, I'm remembering cases of people that have talked to me about this specific issue. From an Islamic perspective, it's actually
a lot of shuyukh go as far as to discourage it, to say, it may be halal, but it'll lead to marriage that may not last. But
I mean, with all due respect, I don't think that's one of the issues that makes people either continue in a marriage or not continue, because it's based on agreement. If they have similar ideas, then what's the problem? Especially if you're talking about Muslims living in the West.
Yes.
They speak the same language. They speak English. They have kind of a similar culture, a culture that I'd like to call the American Muslim culture.
The melting pot culture.
Kind of, yeah.
We try to deal with each other.
Yeah, I mean, it's not really like a melting pot within the Muslim society, but it's more kind of a melting pot within the Muslim society, within the Muslim communities. Now, you have to differentiate between two things. Are you asking me what the person getting married to, the male and female, think, or what their parents think?
Their parents think. This is what you said, the parental baggage that they're bringing with them.
That's the basic issue. Obviously, if a person wants to marry a sister from a different culture, then he agrees to it and she agrees to it. Like they're okay with the idea and they're open to it. But as far as parents, that's where the issue is.
Also, there's some governments that allowed only if you ask the government's permission to marry. You have to basically like apply or something. It sounds like a crazy un-Islamic concept.
It is absolutely un-Islamic, and all it is ignorance. This is not what our deen says. But the reality is, as a Muslim community in the West, in general, we haven't reached that maturity level yet, where things are okay on that aspect. So a brother and a sister who want to get married, who are originally from two different cultures, are going to face a lot of problems. But it is my advice to them not to give up. But it's also my advice to them not to get married, without the parents' permission.
No, of course not.
Try to work hard, to make things go through, inshallah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will help you and will give you whatever is predestined and written for you, inshallah.
Yes, it's strange, especially in the West, because they're all doing the same thing. They're going to the same masjid even, they're doing the same jobs. They're sort of working towards the same goal.
You're my brother in Islam until you ask for my daughter.
Yes, exactly. Do we have any questions from the audience or comments?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment about unity in Islam being a da'wah tool, because, for example, when non-Muslims look at Hajj, they see basically people from all races and creeds just doing one thing, and that's worshipping Allah. And I think that, especially in the West, people should do that in their communities, so non-Muslims could see that in Islam, the religion comes before the culture, and that's more important. And basically, actions speak louder than words. So when non-Muslims see that, they want to know what religion Muslims have, and wonder how strong their faith is, to basically not discuss culture and stuff like that. So yeah, I just wanted to say that comment.
Well, thank you very much. Shukran. There's another question or a topic I wanted to pick up on, technology and unity.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, today the world has seemed so shrunken. You can talk to somebody the other side of the world very easily over the internet.
Globalization.
And the news is being spread very easily.
Yeah.
Well, how can this be a positive tool for Muslims?
It's a positive tool because it gets us to communicate with each other easier. And it could be a negative tool if we're having brothers and sisters communicating on Facebook. That's one of the issues that the shaitan gets to us in. You say, I'm just getting to know about my Muslim sisters in Russia, or I'm getting to know about my Muslim brothers in Nigeria. And in reality, that is one of the ways that the shaitan is getting us, from a very bad perspective. But as Muslims, we should get to know each other, but within the correct Islamic limitations and boundaries, inshallah.
Which that has to do with unity in Islamic belief or something.
Yeah. I mean, now you can get to know the news about the entire Muslim world and the entire world, in a matter of seconds. Before it was difficult.
Yes. Mr. Marwan, can we wrap up the topic? Would you have any last words to say about this?
I really want to also comment about the technology issue. For us as Muslims, this is a very powerful tool if used correctly, as Brother Osama said, because we have our da'wah, we trust our da'wah, and technology is a very good tool to deliver it to the people in the right way. So it's a very good advantage for us, and also in the intercultural dialogue field, things really video conferencing now is very easy to do it, of course, in the right way also, and also even about Facebook. I mean, it's different about people going to chat on Facebook or making groups. For example, there are some very good groups on Facebook which promote the concepts of unity, promotes for Islam, and so we really need to pick what is useful for us and use it the correct way.
So it's just all about using technology in a positive way instead of a negative way.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword.
Yes. Okay, that's all the time we have for this interesting topic of unity. I hope you guys learned a lot to stay united, to learn from each other, and treat each other with respect. That's all the time we have. I'd like to thank our guest, Usama Shami. Thank you very much. Also, thank you very much, Mustafa Marwan. And thanks to our in-studio audience. Thank you guys very much for showing up and not falling asleep. Okay, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
When things go wrong, as they sometimes will, when the road you're trudging seems all uphill, when things go wrong, as they sometimes will, when the road you're trudging When the funds are low and the debts are high, and you want to smile but you have to sigh. When care is pressing you down a bit, rest if you must, but do not ever quit. Success is a failure turned inside out. Let's talk and clear the clouds of doubt. Success is a failure turned inside out. Let's talk